Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heads Up, the weekly webcast and podcast of the National Headache Foundation. I'm Dr. Lindsay Weitzel, founder of Migraine Nation and chronic daily migraine survivor. I'm excited to tell you that I'm here today with Dr. Tim Smith. Hello, Dr. Smith, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on again.
Thanks for being here. Dr. Smith, as many of you know, is a Heads Up regular because of his extensive experience in migraine clinical trials as the CEO of Study Metrics Research. He is also a board member of the National Headache Foundation. And today we have him on because we're going to talk about a really interesting device with some really interesting data. And it's sort of a special episode because we have an announcement to make. Now, we are talking about, we have talked about this before on our up and coming episode, and it was a unique device called Nocira that was being investigated for the treatment of migraine. And it had a lot of promising data, but now we're here to tell you that this device has received breakthrough designation from the FDA for the acute treatment of migraine. And we're going to tell you what that means because it is not common. And so, Dr. Smith, let's begin by discussing why the breakthrough device designation is so special.
Right. So the breakthrough designation is something that the FDA grants for a new treatment that offers value or success more than anything we already have on the market. Mm-hmm. And it's a designation that device manufacturers can apply for, and they have to submit a lot of data and answer a lot of questions to the agency. And if they're reviewing it, if they see fit to grant it that special status, then that's what they do. And so Nocira has this automated variable pulse insufflation. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but it's their mechanism of action for this device. And they submitted that application to the FDA, and they were granted this special breakthrough designation from the FDA for both episodic and chronic migraine acute treatment.
Okay, so what is required to receive this designation? I can't say that word today. I believe it's almost there's like a phrase that's used, like it's got better data than what we have available to us as far as treatments. Is that correct?
Right. They have to have some data that shows that there is a advantage over the currently marketed products. So it has to be something that looks like it has potential to be better than anything we already have. And That's basically, in a nutshell, it's a kind of a boiled down explanation of it, but that's what we're talking about.
So I hope that everyone heard that and understands how exciting that is, because we have a lot of new medications that have been made available to us recently. So the fact that we suddenly have something that got this breakthrough status is actually really exciting, because that means that the data has been shown to be better than what is available to us. So have any other migraine devices on the market received this designation?
There have been, I kind of researched this a little bit, and there are two implantable stimulators that have received breakthrough designation from the FDA for prevention of chronic migraine, and those devices are not marketed yet, but again, they are a more invasive device that gets implanted, surgically implanted as a preventive. So the Nocira device is it's for acute migraine treatment, and so we don't have any previous breakthrough designations for any acute migraine treatment devices, and this is the only one that we have that has that designation.
And this is also the only one that you don't have to have implanted surgically, which is an important point. So let's talk about Nocira, because for the lack of a better word, it's one of the stranger devices I have ever seen. The idea behind it is quite novel. It sort of looks like earbuds. It looks a little bit like these, except with wires attached to it. And it literally delivers like controlled puffs of air into the ears. There is a better term for that. Can you talk to us about it and what it does?
Yeah. So the term is, it's called insufflation. And insufflation is, it's just a medical term of which means that there's a puff of pressure being applied to the eardrum. Ear, nose, and throat doctors sometimes will use this diagnostically to check and make sure the eardrum is moving appropriately, and so they can look in and use a little bulb to insufflate some air into the ear canal, and they can watch the eardrum move. So that's basically how it's been used diagnostically in the past, and that's what doctors would know the word insufflation from. It's not a term that patients would bandy about very much, unless they've actually done some reading on this. But that's what it is. It's just puffs of air, tiny puffs of air that make the eardrum move.
Okay, so why would this help a migraine?
It's a great question. The best studies we have and the best evidence shows that what happens when you cause that pressure to move the eardrum is you send stimulation along maybe as many as 4 different cranial nerves. We know that there are some nerve stimulator devices that are already FDA approved for the acute treatment of migraine, and most of those use electronic stimulation of a cutaneous nerve, and you stimulate those across the skin, either the vagus nerve or the supraorbital nerve or the occipital nerve. We know that these devices exist and are currently in use, and each one of those stimulate a nerve that goes to the brainstem and actually turns on the brainstem to lessen or help defeat the migraine impulses that are going on in the peripheral and central nervous system. So with this device, by moving the eardrum, we're not using electrical stimulation. It's just tiny puffs of air. It moves that eardrum, and that activates as many as 4 different cranial nerves. So instead of just stimulating one, you may be amplifying the effect by stimulating more nerves just through this one simple maneuver. And that can activate the descending pain inhibition pathways, which cause migraine to be turned off. And that's why it's being used this way. And that's what we hope is working. Whatever the case is, the data look good enough so far that they've gotten this breakthrough designation for it.
Okay, so speaking of the data, excuse me, how effective is this device in treating migraine?
Well, in their pilot projects that they have published on, the 67%, about 2/3 of patients were completely migraine pain-free within 20 minutes of use of the device, compared to 7% who reported benefit from a sham treatment. A sham treatment is like the medical device equivalent of a placebo. So that's a striking difference between the sham and the active device results. And really to have pain freedom in that 20-minute mark is essentially unheard of. And that's again supports this device, this breakthrough device designation.
So just out of curiosity, as you test this, and people, I know you're blinded, but what's that like to see that happening?
I tell you, I've treated probably, I don't know, 45 or 50 people with this treatment, and we've been treating in the office. Incidentally, this will eventually be designed for people to be able to take home and use themselves at home. But so far in the clinical trials, it's been patients presenting with an acute migraine and being treated in the clinic. And we see people come in with, the usual, when somebody has a migraine, you just know it, right? They've got their dark glasses on, they're very muted speech, no unnecessary movement. They just, you can tell they're miserable. Their expression will tell you how awful they feel, and they may be nauseated, sensitive to everything around them, lights and noises and smells and so on and so forth. And then sometimes you can turn this device on, and just within moments, just as the minutes, just in the first few minutes of treatment, you can see their countenance start to brighten a little bit, and they want to sit up a little more and look around, and they start to engage with their surroundings, and they become a little more talkative. And then by the time they leave, they're walking out the door, with no pain, no nausea, no light noise sensitivity. And there's like, okay, I'm going to go shopping now, and it's sort of that you never see people, leave,
Right.
even if you can help break their migraine with medication. It's really something to behold. And some of the patients have just been blown away by it. I actually had one patient a couple of weeks ago that treated, and I mean, she just broke down in tears because she said,
Oh,
I can't believe, after all I've been through, I can't believe that it feels like this is unreal. It felt surreal to her, and she just couldn't believe it actually worked. She was skeptical when she came in,
hmm.
and as it started to improve, she started saying, wait a minute, am I supposed to, I don't know how to handle this, because I honestly, I don't trust myself. I feel better, but I know I've never been able to like that this quick before. And then when she leaves with
Right.
zero pain and zero migraine symptoms, it's quite a gratifying experience from a treatment standpoint. So, hopefully the clinical trial data is going to continue to sort of support this notion, these observations that we see, and uh, you know, and we'll just, we'll have to wait for the data. The data, the anecdotes are important, and I am blinded on the studies we've been doing, but we do have some open label treatment experience as well, so that we in the clinical trial design does. There are some open label treatments as well, and we've seen some of those people that we know actually got the effective dose of the little pressure puffs, and we know that they, responded so well, and much more than I've seen in
Hmm.
a lot of other experiences with treating migraine.
Okay. So you did sort of say this a little bit, but I want to make sure everyone's aware. Does Nocira, is it been able to treat the other symptoms, migraine symptoms besides pain, like nausea, light sensitivity?
Yeah, and we're still putting together more data on that, but so far in the preliminary studies, this relieves the total migraine. So the other
Okay.
bothersome symptoms that patients report, the nausea, the light noise sensitivity, the patients report improvement in the total migraine, not just the throbbing pain.
And have there been any side effects reported?
Really, the side effects, this is a very comfortable treatment, and it's non-invasive. So, you don't have to worry about drug side effects. You don't have to worry about drug interactions. There's just the puffs of air. Most patients describe them as comfortable or very comfortable. Some even say it's a pleasant feeling, actually, but interestingly. And so as long as these patients don't have an eardrum problem, then they shouldn't have any worries or issues. And I guess that brings up the point that, we don't study people that have ruptured eardrum or
Yeah.
ear tubes or some other middle ear or inner ear problem. We've excluded them from the studies thus far. I think for obvious reasons. We don't want to go, putting puffs of air in people's
Right.
ears that if their eardrum is not intact. Um, so, so yeah, I mean, you put an earbud in there, and these are not earbuds like your phone, or what. This is like they fit in very snugly and very tight, like if you were using swimming earplugs for swimming.
Right.
You want a good seal. It's not uncomfortable. You want it good, and because these little, you don't want if the air puffs in and there's a leak around the earbud, then the pressure won't have the air puffs won't have its intended effect. So that's, obviously if someone's got earrings and things in there that can't, or something that obstructs
Mhm.
them from being able to insert the earpiece, it could be a problem. But we've honestly had no problems with that so far in the clinical trials.
Okay. So my next question is, you mentioned a couple of ear problems, but now I'm curious. I bet people with vestibular migraine who are watching are wondering if A, they would be able to use this device, and B, if it would work for them. Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
We don't have any data on that, but I think it's a great question. And hopefully, as we gather more data and get closer to product launch, then hopefully the company will have some data or be able to call out data from studies or perform a specific study, as the case may be, to give us further, feedback on that. But it's a great question. I just don't know how to answer it yet.
Okay. And do we know when this device might be available to us?
Well, the sponsor company has not put out any, sort of statements to that effect, and it's always difficult to say. They still need to do their main pivotal study, which should start later this year.
Okay.
Once it's done and the numbers are crunched, they'll, submit to the FDA. The FDA will go through their usual review. My opinion, if I had to guess, I would say that it might be available to the market before the end of 2023.
Okay.
Maybe early 2024. But if everything keeps going the way it is, I unless there's some safety setback, which we have not seen anything like so far, then I think what the main thing is just wait till the trials are all done, the data submitted, and the FDA gives that review.
Okay, great. Is there anything else you can think of to tell us on this topic that we may have missed?
No, I don't think we missed anything, but I think, so you mentioned this is kind of a weird thing, and it does sound sort of strange to people. And I know when I first started looking at this a couple of years ago, it was a new concept to me, and I kind of did some background and some work with the sponsor company to try to understand what was going on. But I found out from the sponsor company that this whole process was kind of discovered through just an observation, really. And I think some of our best studies come from observations sometimes. But there was a chiropractor who was trying to treat a man who had a refractory migraine problem, and he had sought care in many places, never really found, effective benefit, and had resorted to going to a chiropractor and going through some different steps to try to see if there was a chiropractic approach to try to help with his headache attacks. And it was a frustrating process. They weren't making much headway. And the chiropractor asked him, said, has there ever been any exposure or anything you've ever been able to do to relieve your migraine attacks? And the patient sort of sheepishly admitted that he had an exposure at work. And this, I don't want to complicate this, but he worked at a metal machining plant place where they stamped out metal, and had this big, powerful, high pressure stamping press that would press out these metal forms or imprints or whatever. And it created a pressure wave. And it was so much that the workers had to use ear coverings to protect their eardrums. And this patient found out that if he removed his ear coverings and would allow that pressure wave to affect his eardrums, it would actually help relieve his migraine. And so that got the investigators thinking about, this eardrum moving thing. And so, which, by the way, we do not recommend anyone go close to a high percussion
Yeah, exactly.
metal machining device that creates a pressure wave. It's
Do
not
not
safe
try
to
this
do.
at home. Yeah.
Do not try to. There's a reason why they have ear coverings for those things. But this guy just, and he was sort of ashamed to admit it. Someone told me, but after he did, that sort of led to this whole, sort of uncovering of a possible new way of treating migraine. It led to the first intentional, first in man studies that sort of got this ball rolling. And thankfully we had that discovery, and you had a good clinician that asked questions and followed up on them and listened. That we always talk about, how good clinicians will listen and think and try to find, clues to ways to help treat their patients. And thankfully, maybe this is going to lead to something to not only treat that index case, but maybe many, many others. At least we're hopeful of that. So anyway, it's just an interesting anecdote that was shared with me about how this whole process got sort of discovered and concocted and pursued, I guess. So thankfully,
I think it's very
that.
interesting. Yeah, I think everyone wants to know when they hear about this device. Everyone wants to know how it's started, etc., because people are very skeptical when I try to explain to them, yeah, it delivers puff spare into your ears, and it's got great results, and they're always like, Can you explain that? So I'm glad you told the story. So, well, thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Smith, and for explaining this new breakthrough status with the FDA for the Nocira device. And thank you everyone for joining us this week on Heads Up. And don't forget to join us again next week for the weekly webcast and podcast of the National Headache Foundation.